Welcome to Movie RX, where I prescribe entertainment one movie at a time. I am your host, Dr. Benjamin. I am a doctor in the same way that Dr. Crumble is a doctor. Not really. I don't have a degree, but I'd make a horrible doctor, like Dr. Crumble was. He was bad. He was so bad.
Like, Dr. Crumble, is that the guy that makes the recipes for crumble cookies? I don't know.
Dr. Crumble is, I think he's like the evil villain to Kris Kringle. Kris Kringle versus Dr. Crumble.
Oh, I guess whatever it takes, right?
Yeah. Today, in-house, I have, hailing from the coffee countertop of the Round Table Mindset podcast, my guest today is once again Jamie. Welcome, Jamie.
Hello.
Today we're doing a movie. Honestly, it took me far too long to see. Today we're doing Girl Interrupted. Yeah, I hadn't watched this one literally until like a couple weeks ago.
See, I thought for sure I made you watch it a long time ago.
No, I'm really not entirely certain why. I've never really been interested in watching it, but yeah, I haven't seen it until.
It could be the cast, for being honest.
There's something about this cast. I'll just go ahead and jump right into the info on this movie. Columbia Pictures released this movie in 1999. It was directed by James Mangold. James Mangold did actually a lot of really good movies. Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma, The Wolverine, Logan. I mean, he's got quite a few good movies in actually a very short list.
Walk the Line.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. I love that movie.
Yeah, it is a good movie. You know, Jen found out at Denver Pop Culture Con one year that the girl who plays Ginny Weasley, Walk the Line, is her guilty pleasure movie. Oh,
well, it's a great movie. I loved that movie.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. This movie stars Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie, Clea Duvall. Did I say that right?
I would assume so.
Okay. Jared Leto and Whoopi Goldberg. So yeah.
It amazes me Jared Leto gets a shout out for like 5 minutes of filmmaking.
Right. Well, I didn't like the first three that they had.
Well, fair.
Because the first three didn't really feel like the three that should be on there. And Jared Leto was right in front of Whoopi Goldberg on that. And it's like, well, you kind of have to mention him when he comes up.
Fair.
Yeah. No, some interesting things about this movie, though. Winona Ryder actually acquired the rights to the book for this movie herself personally. And it took her 7 years to convince somebody to make it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And because she had the rights, she was the one who picked the director. Like, in this whole thing, like, Winona Ryder pretty much had this movie by the balls.
Well, isn't that, I mean, that's what you do when you own a story, or when a story owns you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's a great story. It's impactful. So I can understand that.
And something else that's kind of neat is that Mangold wrote the screenplay with the two people that this movie is primarily about, Susanna and Lisa, the two actual people.
That's, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it was based on a true story.
That I'm not sure. I don't know if it is true, but the two people who helped him write it have the same name as the two main characters.
Huh.
So I don't know if it's based on a true story, if it was, people who just like their names enough to make their characters named after them, I mean, I don't know what it is, but that's how that is. And something else that's, I don't know, it's morbidly funny to me. Courtney Love auditioned for the role of Lisa.
Wow. She really could have pulled that off.
I don't know why anybody might think that she would be good in that role.
I don't know. Of course, Angelina Jolie did a fantastic job too.
Yeah,
and this was like late 90s. So
yeah,
I feel like it kind of was her life.
Right.
Maybe a little before her humanitarian adoption efforts. I don't know. Right.
Now I've been doing IMDb descriptions for these movies the last few episodes, and this one's going to be no different. The IMDb description for this movie is
it was good.
No, that's my description for this movie.
Oh, okay.
A directionless teenager, Susanna, is rushed to Claymore, a mental institution, after a supposed suicide attempt. There, she befriends a group of troubled women who deeply influence her life. I mean, it's accurate.
It was good. Ben, we need to work on this part.
I mean, I don't know. It's fair because it's not giving you too much. But I mean, I do get it. Like that's not a description of a movie that makes me want to watch it. But
do better, IMDb. Do better.
Yeah, they're okay. They're better than a lot of the like. Have you seen some of the descriptions that they have on like Netflix or Amazon Prime? Like some of them are just like the descriptions they give would make a completely different movie.
You know, I often feel that way whenever I use AI to like, we delve into the depths of, I mean, it's amazing how dramatic it sounds when I'm like, I need to dig for an answer.
Right. Cool bit of trivia for this movie. In the awards realm, it was nominated for 1 Oscar and it won 1 Oscar. So the one thing that it was nominated for, it won, and that was Jolie's performance for Best Supporting Actress.
Well,
so, yeah.
That's it was good. I mean, it was good. It was a great performance, but at the same time, I don't know, there were so many other great performances in the movie that kind of surprises me, I guess.
Yeah, 1999 was a pretty big year for movies, though.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, it's going to be, and I don't know, maybe, I think part of the reason why I never really had a drive to watch this movie is because at the time, I mean, I was 15 when it came out, and it felt like a teenager drama, and I wasn't into that.
Okay, well, I did not see this movie when it came out. I think I saw it probably, I would say, I don't know, 5 or 6 years after it came out. And it definitely had, I don't know, there's those movies that you have in high school, right? That are just like, oh gosh, this is so high school for me. Mm-hmm. So it did kind of feel a little bit that way, but, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this movie. I feel like I would be hard pressed to say that I loved this movie, but I mean, this is a suggestion that comes from you because this movie is important to you. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of want to, with all of this stuff, I kind of want to focus on kind of your experiences with this movie. I suppose we could talk about the characters a little bit. Start with the lead, Susanna, Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
What do you got to say about Susanna?
You know, I think the most interesting thing about Susanna is that one of the scenes that always defines her for me is in the beginning when it's graduation, right? And so she is in a class of peers and she's sitting in the counselor's office, the school counselor's office, and she says, "You have the distinction of being the only student that doesn't have plans for college after high school. So what are you going to do?"
Mm-hmm.
"I'm going to write." And everybody's like, "Yeah, but really, what are you going to do?" Right?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, and I guess this movie's set in the 60s, right? Like, I think it's mid to late 60s. I can't remember for sure the time frame.
Right. I think it's,
when was the draft?
There or towards the end of the 50s, I think. I guess that would be.
Because that was part of the movie, was the draft.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 60s, Vietnam, and I think I love any movie that comes from that period because it's such a fascinating time period for me. Yeah. I think you see like this, I feel like it's like a quintessential space of squishing two generations together, two ideologies, and everything in the time seems to be wrapped around that. And so I think that's part of why the movie appeals to me. Susanna it's almost like she's, I don't know, would it be safe to say she's ahead of her time or something? Because
I think part of the reason why I have such a hard time liking this movie so much is because Winona Ryder and the way that she is presented in this movie feels too modern. Like, you know, the super short hair and all of that stuff. I mean, she just feels like a late 90s girl playing somebody in the 1960s.
Well, but that was, I mean, if you think about the time frame, that really was that shifting time where, you know, we were shifting from I'm going to go to Wellesley College and get a degree to become a wife, and then a whole new generation coming up saying, wait a second, I don't have to be what my parents expect me to be. I don't have to fit in this mold, you know? Right. And I think she was straddling that. So yeah, she was modern. She was definitely modern, but I think that's part of why she was where she was, because she didn't fit. She didn't fit in where she belonged. You know, maybe that was the place that she was into. I don't know.
Around that time frame, there was a very real intentionality in not being a part of the status quo. You know, like, I am not going to be what my mother was. I am not going to do what my mother does. You know, and I mean, a lot of the same stuff with boys too, but I mean, those tended to be more the troubled boys, I think. The rest of them all, you know, signed up instead of getting drafted. But I mean, you can definitely get that feeling off of Susanna in this, is that she has an aversion to what seems to be expected of her. And I can go along with, you know, her desire for things to be different. I mean, she wants to write. What's so wrong about that? You know?
Well, but that was in a time where we didn't encourage our kids to chase their dreams, right?
Right.
Like, we encouraged our kids to do what they're supposed to do. And
well, and I mean, we still kind of do that today.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
yeah.
Go to college, you know, get a career and get married, have kids, white picket fence crap. You know, I mean, it's just all the same thing, just a different age. Your white picket
fence can be brown if you want. It's fine.
Yeah. That's what's changed, is that now we can have colors in our fence.
Right. 2.5 or 1.3 kids. It's fine. Your choice.
Right. I mean, and that seems to be very clearly kind of Susanna's role in this. But what about Lisa? Angelina Jolie. Lisa.
Oh, Lisa. Well, Lisa's the bad guy in the movie, right? I mean, right. I guess if I were to look at the cast of characters, Lisa's the bad guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what she tells Susanna at the end of the movie. I'm here to be your villain.
Well, that's true. That's true. She was very clear. I think and this would have to be a whole nother movie, but I think what's sad is that it's like, there's no reason for Lisa. There's no reason for why she is the way she is.
Yeah, she's just there.
Yeah. And she's always been there, and she always will be there. Like, you definitely get the sense that this is it for her. And that, to me, is kind of sad, because I think in some ways that can totally perpetuate, like, stigma and misunderstandings about mental health and things like that. But maybe that's not important, because I guess the rest of the movie is kind of all about busting those up a little bit. So,
right.
But there's a definite distinction between the two of them. Well, and even you look at their character, you know, we have Susanna, who has dark, short hair, very fair skin. And then you have Lisa, who has blonde hair and blue eyes. You know what I mean? Like, you can even see the way that they style them in the movie. It's almost like complete opposites in some ways.
Yeah.
So
there's another character that I have on the list here. She isn't clearly a part of the big characters, the ones that you see the most of and all of that stuff. She's not clearly in that group, but she is clearly important. Like once you start getting into the spoiler range of the movie, I'm not sure how many people haven't seen this movie. Like I hadn't, but
go watch it. It's so worth it.
But yeah, I mean, Daisy, Brittany Murphy.
First of all, I love Brittany Murphy. I love every Brittany Murphy I've ever seen. I love Brittany Murphy.
Okay.
I just do. I love her. I feel like my favorite role that she was in Clueless. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember Clueless.
I'm pretty sure it was Clueless, right? Not.
Yeah.
Because Clueless and Mean Girls, sometimes those like meld for me.
Yeah, no, she was in Clueless.
Oh, I just loved her character in Clueless. I don't know, because it felt like this is my high school tribe right here. So
Right.
I can compare her to some of my cohorts in high school. But.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, in this movie, she was kind of a background character for the majority of it, except that the majority of her importance felt like it came from just before she left the facility. And like, I mean, as she was leaving the facility kind of thing, then when she was gone is when she became more important. I don't know. It's kind of weird how that worked.
Well, and I think her leaving kind of tripped some issues for some of them too, because they all knew she wasn't any better. You know what I mean? They knew that not enough had changed for her, but here she was getting out and getting to go live her life.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
wasn't a part of a lot of the stuff though, because she kind of kept to herself throughout even the whole movie. Like that was part of her struggles with her mental health, was isolating and stuff like that. So,
and then the last character I have on here is my favorite, Valerie.
Yes, Valerie. Well, and literally, you know, the character is going to have some impact when it's played by Whoopi Goldberg, right? Like, this is the character that has lessons to teach us.
I think the least impactful character that she's ever played was Little Rascals.
Oh, I didn't.
She was simply the mom. You know, like, do you remember the gimmick that came with that?
I didn't even remember she was in that movie.
Literally all it was one of the kids was like, "Look, my mom is here," and then the other one turns and looks at him and goes, "Whoopi," and then it pans over and it's Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was the extent of her time in that movie. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Little Rascals, but yeah. So yeah, that was the gimmick.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, Valerie, she was pretty big, pretty much right from the beginning. As soon as she got to South Bell, you know,
yeah.
Like, I mean, it was, she walked up the steps with her, went right into the ward. I mean, and she didn't really seem to be, you know, she wasn't sugarcoating anything, and she was being real about everything from the beginning. And I feel like from the beginning, like from her first interactions with Susanna, it was almost like she knew that she wasn't a person that was going to be there forever. Maybe more like a mental health triage kind of thing, you know, just get her stable and you know, send her back out kind of thing. I mean, it ended up taking a lot longer than I think anybody anticipated, but it's almost like Valerie knew, I don't have to be too stuffy with this one because she's more like me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the piece that I appreciated, one of the things that this movie really did for me was give me a real good sense of the history and the progression in mental health treatment and facilities and things like that. And what I loved about this is it's like Whoopi was the lighthouse in the port, right? Like,
yeah. All
of these terrible things that happened in that time in mental health treatment and treatment facilities, she went beyond all of that, and she treated them like people, and she didn't treat them as their diagnosis. And so I appreciated that about her, because it's like you could see the good things that were coming. But I've taken a couple of different, like my training for my job for peer support. One of the pieces in that was to learn about the progression of mental health treatment and diagnosis and things like that throughout the throughout the history of human services. And then I took a human services class, and I learned something like similar things, but from a different viewpoint. And it amazes me even to look back in the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years to see the changes that they've made. And some of those changes I was really like against, you know what I mean? This is in a time where you have an issue, we're going to put you in a facility and lock the door. And we had a huge movement in our area about like community-based treatment, things like that. And they were closing all the hospitals. And I was thinking, that's terrible. That's terrible. Where do these people go when they need that?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea is that maybe they don't need that. Maybe that's not the best way to treat people, but I didn't really understand that. And I feel like watching this again it kind of brought some of that stuff back for me to say, okay, well, look at how it is today and how it was back then. And maybe that movement was the best way. Well, I'm not going to say maybe, because I do feel like we have much more effective services and places for people to get help when they need it. So that was kind of an interesting side of this, was to see the history, to really see it in action and what that must have looked like. So, but it kind of permeates throughout the story. So I think we'll probably get into that a little bit too.
Right. Well, I mean, hell, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into the movie? I mean, the first thing I have to say, like, absolutely first, I have to talk about how hard I laughed at the very beginning in the little monologue when Winona Ryder said, "Have you ever stolen something? You had the money when you had the cash." And it's like, ooh, hard not to laugh. I wonder
if it was on purpose.
Right.
You have to think.
I'm betting it's either that or I mean, I don't know if this was a thing, if anybody ever brought it up back then or anything, but what do you think the possibility is that she did it like in preparation of the role? Like, because I don't know if this happened before or after that, but like, because I mean, you know how actors are, they do crazy things to kind of get into a character that they need, that is a little bit more difficult to understand and things like that. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility, I don't think.
Well, in this episode of Movie RX Conspiracy Theory edition, I suppose that could be possible. But I almost wonder if maybe that's why she latched onto the story so much, because maybe that's what she was feeling when that happened. You know what I mean? That like, I stole something and I had the cash for it, but I just needed something to spark or ignite for me. Or, you know what I mean? Like,
maybe she was the one who wrote that in. And
that could be too. Like that could be part of her contribution. But, I think if you think about, I mean, look at all of them. Look at the Britney Spears of the world. And, you think about all of these celebrities that just have that breaking point. Mm-hmm. I'm positive it's because part of what they live is fantasy. You know what I mean? Yeah. They don't live in reality. And so when fantasy isn't great like you think it's going to be, that must be really difficult to cope with. Yeah. Especially if you don't have the tools and the supports to do so.
Right. The next part that I have on here, on my notes here, I simply put Dr. Crumble sucks. And it was because, I mean, I understand that therapy and counseling has changed significantly
so much
since this time and everything, but I still couldn't help but get a little mad. I mean, there was that point in the conversation where he said, "You're hurting everyone around you." Like, okay, so shaming her about it is going to make her want to change? Like, it just, I don't know.
It's kind of shocking. It's shocking to think that there was a time in our humanity that we thought that was the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, what on earth?
Guilt people into better behavior or something.
Because who cares about you and your feelings? You're hurting everyone else's feelings. So get with the program here and move forward.
Right.
What?
But, yeah, Dr. Crumble sucked, and that really stood out to me.
And can we also talk for a second about the ethics around my friend calls me up because his kid is struggling and let me do a little therapy session with her and then commit her to a hospital.
Yeah. That
felt a little not okay to me too. So
yeah. I don't suppose that would fly today. Well, and he was retired too.
Yeah.
Like, because he said, I don't do this anymore, but I'm doing it as a favor. Like,
Right.
so you're not even getting paid. Like, this feels all kinds of fly by night, dude. Like,
Yeah, it felt a little icky.
Then, like, I mean, during all of that stuff, we kind of learn a little bit of important back information. The flashback where she's at her party, you know, the party for, I think it was like Carol, I think her mom, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure who it was, but she was at the birthday party, and like she goes to go to her room, and that predator friend of her dad shows up at her bedroom door and is trying to get her to spend some time with him alone.
Yep.
And to me, that was a big part. Like, it was like they just gave you the answer right at the beginning.
You thought
there's trauma. Right. There's trauma here, you know? So, I mean, that was pretty big in that flashback. You want to talk about feeling icky, like just that whole scene where he's trying to push himself into the room to talk to her or whatever, you know, and it's like, God, just go away.
Well, and they picked the right character because he looked the part. I mean, if we're being real, it was pretty cringy.
Yeah.
But I do think, I think what's interesting is that was a softball, and we don't know that that's a softball until later in the movie.
Yeah.
And we find out that could very well have been more of a symptom of her disease than the cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just a little foreshadowing.
There was like shortly after she gets in, we meet the other big character, Lisa. She gets brought in, clearly returning
after running away.
And she pulls off her coat and she throws it to one of the orderlies, and then she said something that kind of it kind of broke open an old wound for me in there, and that was when she tossed the coat aside and said, "I'm glad to be home." Mm-hmm. You know, back at this treatment facility that is clearly not supposed to be someplace that somebody wants to call home. So, I mean, this place becomes a place where she goes to kind of escape that feeling of not having not a place to be or wanting to feel like she belongs somewhere other than where she does. But the reason why it kind of opened up some old wounds for me was because it put me in mind a lot for Mom. She'd have a couple of bad days, you know, like where things just weren't working out, and then, you know, and then right back into the ward, you know.
Yep.
And so like that almost haunted me a little bit after that.
Yeah.
I missed kind of part of the movie because of it.
Well, and I'll tell you, I think that's another piece of this, that it really, when I watched this, it did give me some insight as to what that cycle might have been for her. You know what I mean? And how in a place like that, I mean, okay, so let's go back to Fight Club for a second, right? They're going to all these self-help meetings because it's feeding something for them. And so, you know, to see the environment, to see the relationships, to see, you know, a place where it's okay just to be whoever I'm going to be, that might have been a really appealing place. And so, yeah, I have always said that part of the healing thing in this movie was me being able to sort of process through that and see a different perspective that I couldn't understand in a different way. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, they were still a peer group. Like they go out and they go to that ice cream parlor, and
that was such a great scene. Go ahead.
I can definitely do without the scenes, like the close-up scenes of Angelina Jolie playing with a cherry in her mouth or whatever. That's annoying as hell. But
yeah,
the part after where they're all sitting down and her best friend's mom, who has found out about the stuff with her and her husband, she is in this ice cream parlor, and so she's like trying to hide her face and everything, and then, well, she notices her and goes over and starts to get in her face about it. and you know, I mean, it's probably not an appropriate place to do that. But I mean, the woman is clearly acting on you know, emotion there, goes and starts getting in her face. And then one of the best parts of this movie is when they all like they start barking at her and making intentionally crazy sounding noises, like trying to make themselves sound like they are criminally insane, and things like that. I mean, it is just to chase this woman off to get her to shut up and leave was cool. Like, okay, so we're all staying at this crazy people place and we're going to act crazy. We're going to own it right now just to protect our friend. You know, like it was really cool.
Well, and I loved how they had a little bit, I mean, it was kind of like the inside joke, like, because this is what everybody believes of us anyway. Right. And that's not what at all you see the entire movie.
Right.
And quite frankly, I also thought it was super fascinating that this woman came up to them and acted like she was crazy.
Right.
Like, and I don't know. Do you remember what she said? She said, "I hope they put you away. I know what you did." As if getting mental health treatment was a punishment, like a criminal offense.
Right.
And how interesting of a perspective must that have been? And I think probably fairly common. You were carted off. You were taken away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was I loved that scene as well. And how she felt so supportive and supported, and probably maybe for one of the first times ever. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of showed another thing that kind of, you know, made me reflect back on Mom and everything. What you were saying about how it was kind of the inside joke. You know, that like, oh, well, if we're expected to be crazy, then, you know, we might as well at least pretend, you know. And I mean, that kind of was the way that all of those people were when Mom would go into the hospital. We'd go up and visit, and all of the people sitting around those tables, like, it was like they were buddies. They weren't there for any of these mental health reasons. They were all just there to hang out, you know, or whatever. It was so weird because it almost created a sort of like a sense of community.
Yep.
That it, like, then it goes back to the thing that I talked about at the beginning, the whole, you know, glad to be home thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it becomes a community, I think. Or at least it did. Like, I mean, again, these are all things that they don't really do much anymore. They're not super common in practice anymore. But yeah. Now the next part, shortly after the really awesome ice cream parlor scene, Polly, the girl with the burnt face, she has a huge behavior. She starts throwing things and breaking things and all of that. They carry her off and put her into, you know, I don't know what they call it, seclusion.
I think,
you know?
so, probably.
And God only knows what they called it back then. Like, but they put her into a room by herself, you know, with the intention of keeping her safe or whatever. And then that was when Susanna and Lisa did something really, really awesome and crazy cool. Polly, throughout the whole movie, had been trying to get into the music room.
Mm-hmm.
She just wanted
I'm feeling particularly musical today.
Right. Susanna takes Lisa's keys and goes into the music room and grabs some instruments, and they go out and they sit outside her door and they start singing. And
not that Lisa was supposed to have keys.
Right. No, she wasn't. Like, I mean, she just always has them. But yeah, I mean, that kind of selflessness is really kind of neat in something there. Like, I mean, they had no reason to do that. You know, they had no reason to risk it or anything, except that this was a person in their community that needed that attention, that needed that assurance.
And I would even challenge that a bit to say, was it them? I don't think it was the two of them. I think it was Lisa. It was Susanna. Susanna wanted to go make it better. Susanna saw somebody hurting and wanted to help. Lisa went along for the ride because Lisa needed something from Susanna. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think that was motivation there for Lisa to help someone.
No. Well, and yeah, I guess how I had put it kind of implied that it was a collective effort. But no, I mean there was no selfless intent with Lisa and all of that. By letting Susanna take the reins on some of the things that they did, I think it made her feel less the way that she normally does. Like, feel a little bit more like, like the good person that she sees everybody else to be, and that she just won't allow herself, almost like, it's kind of like how people say, well, there's my good deed for the day. Like you are obligated to have a good deed every day, or something like that. Like it's just kind of that feeling with her, is that it's not like she does it because that's just something she's supposed to do.
And I do think that there's some piece of it. She didn't do it because she cared for Polly. She did it because she cared for Susanna, because Susanna fed something in her. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, they get busted, and I mean, big time. Like, there was an orderly who was closer to their age that was attracted to Susanna,
who was not doing a very good job of keeping order.
No, he wasn't. After they get busted, they end up taking Lisa away. That's when Susanna starts seeing Dr. Wick. There was one little thing that I wrote down that was just kind of a thing that this is probably one of the most substantial things to me in this movie was a quote from Dr. Wick. And that was when she said, "How much will you indulge in your flaws?" And I mean, wow. Like, I mean, talk about a way to call somebody out on their bullshit,
I believe today we call it motivational interviewing.
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean, honestly though, like that, I mean, that's a really, indulging in your flaws. I mean, when you think about your bad habits, when you think about the things that you do and that you want to change, but you never do, and the constant battle of, well, maybe next time, or whatever. I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, wow, that just really, it says a lot. How much will you indulge in your flaws? And that said something to Susanna too. Like, I mean, not enough, because immediately after this, she gets in on some nasty stuff. She takes some contraband drugs that she had stored and all of that stuff. And I mean, Valerie, this is one of the important points that Valerie comes into play, and she picks her up and carries her off and dumps her in a bathtub full of cold water. And Susanna's pissed, and she just unleashes all kinds of things on Valerie, singing a racist song and just trying to blame her for her being stuck there, and treating it like a prison, and that they were all fascists and all this stuff. And yeah, she was showing Lisa-like behavior. Yeah. And it almost like she felt like the ward needed a Lisa. And so if she's not going to be here, then I'm going to be the Lisa. It was neat to see Valerie just say, like, I see that you're trying to do something here, but you're not you. And you know that this isn't you. That she's lashing out about her friend being taken away. And I think it kind of goes back to that whole thing that you were saying with Lisa going along with the singing to Polly. I think that at the time there was something in Lisa that Susanna needed. Yep. Or at least she felt like she did. And I think that was kind of an important part of her getting into a position where she could change.
I almost feel like Susanna felt like people saw her as Lisa, that the way people viewed her and her actions. And if you think about it, even you go back to Dr. Crumble's comment, you're hurting everyone around you.
Yeah.
So, I think that is a huge piece of why Susanna was like, this is who I am clearly because this is what I was told and, whatever. And it took Whoopi, it took Whoopi to say, hey, this isn't who you are. It was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually.
Lisa comes back and she's ready to break out again. And a lot of it is brought on, I think that they had done some electric shock therapy and she was clearly not in a good place. Convinces Susanna to go with her, thinking that she was Jamie, her old roommate, and they're going to run to Florida. Well, they don't get to Florida. They stop off at Daisy's. Daisy had gotten out, and she got her own apartment and all these things that her dad was paying for because the doctor, said that she was ready to go. Well, the doctor was not being wholesome with Daisy. He was taking advantage of Daisy. And
according to Lisa, I mean,
right.
We don't know that for sure. That's what Lisa said.
Right. And like when they stop off at Daisy's, that's Lisa just throws it right in Daisy's face. And I mean, okay, well, just don't make too much noise when you get up tomorrow, goes up to her bedroom, and, that's the end of that night. But during that exchange, when Daisy and Lisa are, they are slinging mud, especially Lisa. Like, Daisy's trying to fight her back just because, she's being pushed into a corner. But Lisa attacks her viciously.
With words. Just words. It wasn't a physical thing at all. It was simply like, hey, this is what everybody thinks about you.
Yeah. And she wasn't even yelling.
No.
Like it was just, she was calmly talking very quietly, saying some horrendous things to this girl. She ends up going upstairs and Lisa, after her thing, I don't know, she just seemed to be in this weird, this weird state. Not catatonic is the wrong word.
Like she was in an episode of some kind, like whatever. Yeah. I can't say psychosis because I am not a diagnoser, just for the record.
Right.
But it was definitely like an episode of some kind where she was just on a rampage and, but then afterwards, like she just went and sat down and then didn't sleep until much later. Like, you could tell that clearly she wasn't okay.
Right.
And Susanna was just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah.
She tried to stop it, but it didn't.
She very loosely tried to stop it. Like she did speak up.
Yeah.
But it was pretty much just telling her to stop and called her a jerk, basically. Like,
yeah.
And that was the end of that, which that ends up being really important. The fact that she just told her, that her intervention was essentially, shut up, Lisa, you're being a butthead.
Right.
That comes back on her later because, the following morning she gets up and goes upstairs and finds Daisy had committed suicide, and she goes back to Claymore. Lisa takes off, of course. When Susanna gets back to Claymore, then she buys in.
Yeah, it's a whole different story. And I think that is another piece of this that I really, really loved, is that from the beginning to the end. So, you have her in complete denial. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I had a headache, right? To somewhere mid-movie, she's saying, I can't leave. I tried to kill myself, so I'm sick. I can't leave here. And then you have her own her diagnosis and almost live it out on purpose or just explode it to her whole identity. And then she comes to this point, and it's like this was rock bottom for her. You know what I mean?
Right.
And this event is what caused change. She saw the difference between her and Lisa. She saw that her and Lisa were not the same, and that Lisa is sick and has always been sick and will always be sick, and that doesn't have to be her. The doctor from Claymore came to the house after Daisy had died, Susanna got to see him cry about that. I think all of those pieces helped her see Claymore in a whole different way, because Lisa had just talked, how awful these people were, and they're just playing games and they're all horrible people and nobody gives a crap about you. And here Susanna was able to see, okay, this isn't what I want. And so she went back and just embraced the whole thing. She participated in her sessions rather than, throwing back sarcastic quips. And, it was a whole different thing when she got back. So it was cool to see the whole progression of recovery in that, from I don't have a problem, I can't even admit that I have a problem, all the way through to, she said, I'm doing really great. I'm not taking any medication. And she hasn't had any episodes or incidents. I think, I can't remember which word they used, but I thought that was really fascinating too, to see that whole progression. And they did such a great job of that in this movie.
Yeah. It took the whole movie because
was almost a year,
right?
I think, in the movie.
Yeah, it was a full year of time, which that again, that's not something that you get now. You don't get those year-long stays. Even I don't even know that that's been a thing in our lifetime, really. Just exceptional cases where that might have, but honestly, that like a whole year, like to somebody that old. That is less than, that is 1/18 of their life, which, I don't know. It's crazy to me. But after she buys in and she starts getting better and they start talking about, they told her that she could go home. It was her last night and they gave her a sleeping pill, so that she could just go to bed, and they told her that the last night's always the worst and all of that, or the longest, and she goes to bed. But she wakes up, finds her cat missing, and also her book that she's been writing the whole time she's been here.
It was her journal, observations and self reflections and confessions and gone.
And then she finds that Lisa has it. Lisa's returned, and she grabbed that stuff, and she's reading it out loud to, to Polly and Georgina. Was that her name?
I think so.
But yeah, she was reading the things that she had written about these people to them, and she's starting some shit, but she starts pushing on Susanna. This person that's supposed to be important to her, she starts pushing on her the same way that she pushed on Daisy. Mm-hmm. But unlike Daisy, who was not ready to leave the facility, Susanna was. And so she pushes back and she doesn't confront. She brings the things that Lisa needs to confront up into her face and makes it so, she walks face first into this brick wall of things that Susanna just shoves right back at her, making her face all of those demons.
Well, and throughout the movie, Lisa kind of owns the place. Even the nurses, they kind of cater to her, and, she's the big personality in the place. And that was the first time that someone other than Valerie had stood up to her and said, this isn't how it goes. But it almost felt like Susanna was standing up to that closet full of demons. You know what I mean?
And her parents. Everything. Lisa was just the one that was in her way.
It was the graduation speech she didn't get to make because she fell asleep during graduation.
Right.
That was her crossing the stage for real.
Right. In that pretty well. I don't want to go into too much about the end of the movie or anything like that, because some people are going to want to go watch it or whatever and see.
Oh, go watch it anyway. If I spoiled it, go watch it anyway.
But you had pointed out a particular sound bite that I went ahead and pulled, and I'll go ahead and play that now.
Crazy isn't being broken or swallowing a dark secret. It's you or me. amplified.
It's you and me amplified.
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm guessing that we're getting into active ingredient territory here.
Yep. This was kind of the big lesson for me in this. And, it's interesting because I don't know. I loved the movie then for all the reasons we've talked about. It helped me understand what our mom experienced. It helped me see things in a different way and have a different perspective and all of that. And then I rewatched it just a few years back, and that quote hit like a freight train. And I think it's because now I have been through enough crap. I've been in enough spaces and enough hard times to know there have been times where I've questioned, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Because life is crazy. Watching Susanna take personal responsibility for her well-being, to be able to understand that, she can make steps to be well. She can do what she needs to do to be okay. And sometimes it's not because you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with the things that are going on around you, and that makes it really hard. And it was good for me to remember that, because I think even since then, when I've had really big things happen, it's a question. Am I okay? Am I crazy? Is this really how I'm going to respond to this, But to remember that I don't have to own some huge diagnosis because I'm going through something really hard. That I can go to counseling and not be crazy. I can go and get help.
You can go to counseling because you're going through a hard time and then stop.
Exactly. Yes. I can go to my doctor and say I'm really depressed and I'm really having a hard time. And it could be because I'm just in a bad space.
Yep.
It could be because the chemicals in my brain aren't balanced very well, and that's okay too, but it's okay to ask for help, because it doesn't mean that I'm flawed. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. And that quote just kind of reminded me, even, and I think, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Ben. So welcome world to the inside workings of Jamie's brain. But I remember just before I got married, one of the things, Mom had been going through all of this stuff for a long time. And it was pretty well known to my fiance at the time that Mom had some struggles. And I remember doing the premarital counseling thing, and one of the things that we were talking about is, what fears do you have going into marriage? And he said that it's genetic and she'll end up just like her mother. So there was this automatic assumption that I was gonna lose my marbles, that I was gonna go crazy, and I was going to, and then quite frankly, anytime something came up, that was the message that I remember feeling was, great, now I look crazy. Great, now I sound crazy, and to stop and think, wait a second, crazy isn't anything but what you're experiencing amplified. And that can happen to anybody. It's okay to say, yeah, I'm feeling a little crazy right now and I need some support, and not feel like that's some sort of, like that stigma that we put on ourselves in that space.
Right.
It helped with that. So I don't know.
Good. See, that's the stuff. That's the kind of stuff that this podcast is about. Those moments in a movie that hit you hard and make you reflect on something that you did have to experience. No, that's good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
But now I got to be all sorts of a bummer and be all like, well, to be completely honest, this movie really wasn't very medicinal for me. If I'm going to be honest, it was more haunting than anything. Not to say that I didn't enjoy the movie. I want to make sure to specify it's not that I didn't enjoy the movie. It was just, it was a different kind of thing for me.
Yeah.
You need to share your stuff, Sisto.
Yes. Well, if you haven't heard before, because I've been on a couple of times now, I am half of the podcast Roundtable Mindset. Me and my friend Malin have been doing that for a little over a year now. And yeah, it's a really fun platform where we kind of do something sort of similar. Like we just bring different perspectives to the table and talk about difficult things. And that's kind of what our second year is all about, is just having difficult conversations, and not just the kind where, you know, it's argumentative, but the kind that maybe we avoid. So there's going to be some interesting topics and some interesting guests to really open up those kind of spaces. And it's fun. We enjoy it. We also have like have I talked about the podcast mini or the podcast short yet?
Oh, the Taco About It Tuesday?
Yes. About It Tuesday. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but it is a news thing where we get to riff off of an article. Funny, strange, serious, spiritorial, however you want to splice it. And that's been a lot of fun too. It's just a quick 15-20 minute podcast on Tuesdays, and then our regular episodes drop on Thursdays. So tune in if you're interested. You can find us on all the major, you know, socials and stuff. You guys already know. So
awesome. Well, Thank you, Jamie. If you have an idea for a movie, or if you'd like to challenge me to find a therapeutic purpose in a movie, or even if you'd like to be on an episode, send an email to contact@movie-rx.com, or you can send a text or leave a voicemail at 402-519-5790. You know, I check those a couple times a week, so go ahead and send me a message if you got any ideas. I got a couple of people that have mentioned something, so might be looking at a couple of new voices on the podcast.
Well, I think our other sister is looking to get in on this too. So
yes, and I keep needing to call Dad. Like, I mean,
yes,
when you talk about our family and podcasting, like, and
movies,
well, I mean, there's like we get it from somewhere. Like,
yeah.
Dad is kind of the yeah, he's kind of the honestly, he's our podcasting guru. Like, yeah, I may have been interested in it longer, but Dad is definitely far more experienced and done a lot of really cool stuff with it,
and killing it. My goodness, he tells me about his downloads, and I'm like, wait, what?
Like, you're kidding? Yeah.
Like, Dad, are you sure?
So yeah, I can't. I'm really hoping that relatively soon I might be putting together an episode of Movie RX where I have Jim specifically mentioning, you know, from the Dune Saga podcast. Actually, Jen really wants to do an episode about Dune with Dad.
Oh, that'd be fun. I'm sure he'd get a kick out of that too.
And just because it's my show, I'll be on it. But I'm pretty sure, I'm not entirely certain, Jamie, as much as you hate Dune, I think Jen loves it more than I do.
I tell you what, there are very few movies that I just cannot, and that's one of them. So you guys enjoy that. I mean, I wouldn't mind bringing some snacks and hanging out that day, but I'm probably not. I'd have nothing to add.
I might know how to convince you to watch the new Dune.
No.
Yeah. Oscar Isaac and Timothy Chalamet both have some pretty impressive eyebrows.
Okay. Well, shoot. Except I can get those in short form on YouTube. It's fine. I don't need to watch it.
All right. So yeah, thank you all for listening, and remember, this movie is not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and we will see you at the next appointment.